Hi, I'm Emily Burmis, and this is 120 Seconds to Better Leadership. So, thinking today about what it's like to work with a sociopath. So, I always thought sociopaths were the guys that were in horror movies that were chopping people into bits on Halloween, and I didn't realize that they're actually somewhat prevalent in our normal everyday work lives. So, the estimate that we see is that about 3% of the population are, on the sociopath spectrum. And which isn't a lot, but the higher you go in organizations, the more prevalent they become. So we know that about 15% of CEOs and politicians actually are sociopaths. So what does this mean? Sociopaths do not have an ethical compass. They're actually missing the part of the brain that gives us the ability to feel empathy or a guilty conscience. They don't have that. So they'll do whatever they want. They'll say whatever they want to get wherever they want or whatever they want. So obviously, if you have this person on your team, they can't be trusted, they can't be cured, and if you work for one, that can be really dangerous, right? They can, catapult your career if they want to. They can also, tank your career if they want to. So it's especially important, I think, to be careful around these folks. So here are just a couple of symptoms to look for when you think you might be working with someone who's a sociopath, which is different than a narcissist, and we see those two. Maybe I'll make a different post about those. But sociopaths, so they're incredibly dishonest. They lie constantly, again, to get whatever they want, to do whatever they want. And because they don't have a conscience, there's nothing in them that tells them to maybe feel bad about that. So you can't trust a word that they say. They also tend to be highly intelligent and charismatic, which is part of why they end up being really successful. They know what people want to hear, and they're really good at delivering that so that, again, they can achieve their goals. So highly charismatic, but dishonest. They can spend a lot of time talking about how honest they are and how impeccable their ethics are, because again, it's like, no, I'm the most honest guy in the room, and they're like the most dishonest guy. So people that are honest generally don't have to talk about the fact that they're honest, because they just are. But people that are highly dishonest tend to talk a lot about how honest they are, because that's their cover, right? So it's thou doth protest too much, I think, a little bit. Probably the last thing I would say is sociopaths have a really strong tendency to gaslight people. So if you haven't Googled gaslighting, most of the research is written about how people gaslight in personal relationships and not so much at work, but the principle's the same. So gaslighting is when someone makes maybe a small mistake and the person just blows them up, like they throw gasoline on the fire, and this huge reaction to make the person that they're gaslighting feel, really insecure and embarrassed and like, oh my gosh, that must have been a huge transgression, when it wasn't. They're just trying to get you to question your own sanity, essentially. So those are the big three things that I think I see in sociopaths. Fortunately, I haven't run across a ton of them, but again, the higher you go in an organization, the more likely you are to run across one. And if you don't know what some of the signs are, you can spend a lot of years making yourself crazy trying to figure out why this person is so difficult. And so if you find yourself in a situation where you're working for one especially, the only solution is to get out of that job, find someone else to work for, because you're never going to change them, and it will make you kind of crazy.